Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Business Barbershop Podcast. I'm Chris, and not everybody's going to introduce themselves yet. We are doing something new. There's four of us here, I believe, for the first time ever. This may become a recurring meeting. We're trying to copy the All In podcast, at least I am. But we are here. It is January 6th. I have one more thing we can add to the list, by the way. January 6th, 2026, first Tuesday of the year. We're going to do prediction show, basically. What do we think 2026 is going to look like? What are our thoughts, feelings about it? And let's dive in. Before we do that, though, if everybody could give like a quick intro, okay? And by quick, I mean like 30 seconds. That would be great. All right. Let's see. Keen, everybody knows you, but you go first.
Yeah, my name's Keen. Obviously, I've been co-host of the show from the beginning. We've My background is I started off in banking and real estate banking, and then I'm a developer now too. But I've always loved all things associated with business. And as I get older, I get more. I don't know. I think when I was younger, I wanted to be interested in this stuff, and now this is the only thing I really pay a lot of attention to other than sports. It's a little cliche, but that's me.
Yep. Perfect. And then Chris and Andrew, actually, I think the guests on our show that have been here the most number of times. I'm not sure who. I think Andrew may have been here 3 or 4 times, and Chris, I know you've been at least twice. So everybody also kind of knows who you are, but maybe just a quick. Andrew, why don't you go first? 30 seconds. Who are you?
Andrew
Why should we
Norman.
care about you?
I've been in the wealth management and financial planning game for, gosh, this is 25 years now or so. And yeah, I think this is my fourth or fifth time being a guest, and it's always a joy. I love going down the rabbit hole with you guys.
Yep. Love it. Perfect. And then Chris.
So I'm a little bit of a jack of all trades. I run a real estate development company. An owner in a company in the Bellevue area called Legacy Group Capital. So we are a private lender and we syndicate private funds. And then I run a registered investment advisory company that I've been involved in for over 20 years. So that's me.
Love it. Okay, great. All right. So 2026 prediction show. I circulated several different sort of questions, topics, and we're just going to kind of dive right into each one. That's all right with you guys. And at the top, this is one that Keen wanted to talk about specifically, which is it's actually already happened in 2026, but we're going to just continue it out, which is this the Maduro seizure. Okay, Venezuela. Obviously, it's a hot topic right now for many different reasons, political, business, resource reasons. And it's also, I don't know how sort of active you guys are on social media, but it's always really interesting to see anything that Trump does in the world, how it is received by a certain number of people. He could have brought Jesus Christ back to life, and some people would still rail on him, whether or not you like Jesus, you know. But the question, the sort of the question for the prediction show for the group is sort of, what do you think are going to be sort of some of the long-term effects of this action? Okay, so it can be really, you can take it any direction that you want. Just curious to hear what everybody thinks. Keen, since he's all fired up, let's let Keen go first, and then we'll go Chris, and then we'll go Andrew.
Yeah, I don't know if I wanted to go first. I think I wanted to bring it up to hear everyone's opinion, but
If you want, I can chime in and share my thoughts on particular, because I really have a two-pronged approach um to my view of this. Really, I don't care what anybody in the United States feels about it. I care about what the people of Venezuela feel about it. And as
yeah,
far as I can tell, largely this is very well received from the people of Venezuela. Like, the people in Venezuela are very enthusiastic about and there's not a lot of media coverage, right? So you have to search out
Yeah, I will tell
other
you,
outside US
I have a
media
sample
sources.
size of one. My paralegal, who has been working with me for over 5 years, is from Venezuela. She doesn't live there anymore. She sort of fled the country, not to the
Mhm.
US, to Europe, basically, but her family still lives there. And we had a team meeting yesterday, and she like broke down in tears uh, because
Right.
it is such an impactful um, thing that has happened. She's also right now, and Angel, I'll let you get back in this, but just to give you just this context, that sort of this color, this sample size of one. She's also though right now very, very worried about her family because there's sort of, a lot of civil unrest. Like no one is
Sure.
in charge. She said there's like people that are stopping cars. I don't know if it's like the police, and they're basically looking through to see if you have any connection with Maduro. And if you do, they're taking you. And like you are never to be seen again. It's like so it's kind of
Wow.
yeah, it's pretty
Whoa.
wild. And so she's like her family, they need it's like this balancing act because they're just regular people, like they're just out there living life. They need to work and they need to do things, but it's kind of, um, it's a little scary to go out there. So anyway, I wanted to just give that color because I thought that was pretty interesting and about
Well,
as close to the
it
situation you
speaks
can get.
it speaks directly to my point, which is really how I feel about what's going on in Venezuela is not as important as how the people of Venezuela feel about what's going on there. So, I have this kind of two-pronged form of thinking, right? Like there's the social and civil impact, which is okay, well, what does this mean for the people of Venezuela? And there's a whole dial. I mean, we could talk for hours about that alone. But then there's the other side, which is the economic impact, and what is the really functional? It's not just okay. There's oil. It's the type of oil that, from everything that I have discovered, and what kind of the talking heads, at least in economics and financiers, are discussing, is that our refineries in the United States are already built to refine the type of oil that Venezuela produces, and our refineries in the United States are not well suited for the Texas crude the light crude that we have been producing here in the United States. So this whole thesis around, well, access to Venezuela's oil and total output and merging the two types of oil to increase productivity from our refineries. There's the whole economic side of what's going on in Venezuela, which if the United States and big oil are involved in stewarding or kind of navigating access to that type of oil, it's a net good thing, not just for Venezuela, but also for the United States.
So what's your prediction though? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think it's going to get real sticky before it gets better because there are other interested parties,
Okay,
meaning, at least in
let
the
me
short term, Russia
I'm going
and
to
China. So it
pin
depends
you
on
fools
what Russia
down
and China
to
to do.
actually answering the question. At the end of 2026,
Yeah.
what is the state of Venezuela? What is happening with regard to this situation at the end of 2026? What is your prediction? It's
Well,
okay if you're
so
wrong
yeah,
because
so
it's a
I'm
prediction.
gonna go in the world's optimist view. I'm gonna go with the Nobel Peace Prize winner is effectively in power, and
Okay.
there's peace and economic prosperity in the region, and that China and Russia look at this objectively and decide that because Venezuela is on the doorstep of the United States, we're actually serious about this and we're not going to let this go back sideways, and that this is a net positive for the people of Venezuela, and that it's an economic win for not just Venezuela but for the United States, and they become one of our greatest allies in the West.
Okay. I love that.
Hmm.
Okay, good. Good. All
That's
right,
my
Chris,
that's my that's
yeah,
my
that's good.
optimist pin.
That's good. Remember, we only got an hour, so we gotta,
Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about. That's why I'm going to be the greatest moderator in the world on this show. Trying to
There you go. That's my 2 cents.
herd you guys. Okay, Chris, what do you provide any color that you want, and then prediction,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
initial thoughts and
So You've heard it said the Dunroe Doctrine has been this like term that's been thrown out the last couple of days. It stems from the United States, what formerly was called the Monroe Doctrine, dating back to James Monroe. Basically, the thought was, hey, we want to protect kind of our hemisphere, the Western Hemisphere, from the Europeans. In this case, obviously Russia was heavily involved in the Cuban Missile Crisis. Venezuela was also kind of a you know, not operated by Russia, but had very strong ties to communist Russia for some time. I think it's been long sought after from previous administrations to be able to root out Maduro. And so even though Trump now had the balls basically to go after it and make it happen and was successful in doing so, it's not as if the United States hasn't had our eyes set on removing Maduro for some time. And so I don't think, like, you know, to the point made earlier about some of these folks that are complaining about Trump, these are the same people that want to remove Putin from power. So it's like their ideology is inconsistent with itself, because on the one hand, they want to remove what they perceive to be one dictator, but when Trump is the one that's, you know, making the order, they don't want to remove another dictator. And there's 8 million, you know, Venezuelans that fled over since Maduro's regime. The country's about 30 million in total. So that's a significant portion of their population that fled. Those Venezuelans are ecstatic. So I just think, once again, the left is committing suicide by taking the wrong side of this, and it's going to hurt them in the midterms. So my prediction is, you know, Venezuela will be a far more successful rebuild than Iraq was. And so a lot of the concern is around the United States kind of previously getting into the nation building and failing, right? And I don't think that's what this was. I think that there's a far more robust plan than previously kind of was integrated in the Middle East, for example. And we will see the U.S. Establish strong relations with Venezuela. As what's also happening is Argentina has gone conservative, as has Chile. And Brazil is seeing like a nationwide kind of call it evangelical Protestant kind of reformation that's going on. At the same time, they have this kind of socialist government that had kind of thrown out Maduro, not Maduro, but Bolsonaro. But likely you would see in Brazil's next election, I think, a much more competitive election there. So a lot of South America is going through a renaissance, and this move in Venezuela, I think, further foments that move, and establishes, I think, more I guess I would think a stronger U.S. grip on South America, and also keeps some inflation at bay if the United States, which I believe, here's one of my predictions, the United States will, not United States, but Iran will see a regime change as well, probably in the coming months. And so being able to control the Venezuelan oil production to offset the Iranian oil production that will likely go offline when the regime change occurs is also a smart political calculation on the Trump administration, to be able to preserve oil prices so that they don't, you know, come up during the midterms, right? So there's my thoughts.
Yeah, love it. Okay, I'm gonna go before Keen, because I don't have a ton to say, but and I'm gonna piggyback off of what Chris said a little bit as well. I think one of the things that I have been pleased with not hearing during all of this is like, and I saw this somewhere else too, is that you're not really hearing the word democracy thrown around a lot, you know, and what that really means is we're not trying to sort of create our system there. It sounds like, which has never been a good idea. Like it has never worked anywhere ever because people are just not like us, right? I mean, we have grown up with these freedoms and these ideas for multiple generations that are a part of our who we are, part of our being. That and everywhere else, it's just not like that, which is fine. Like so, other systems will come into place that hopefully are similar, but um, take into account, the citizens of that country. So I think that when we look at the end of 2026, I think, Venezuela is going to be, um, it's going to be a lot less of our sort of finger on the country would be my guess. I think we will definitely help the right people come into play, and I think that it will appear as though we are sort of like pushing things in a certain direction, but that's really only because at the end of the day, we just want people that will be good partners with us, period, I think, right? I mean, we don't have to be in control of people for them to have for it to benefit us. And I think if somebody is interested in growing their economy and growing their country and having successful citizens, like I think that helps us. Like there's no way it doesn't. So that'd be kind of my general prediction, or what I guess maybe what I just hope happens is that someone is able to sort of come in and lead the country in a direction that gets things going in the right direction. So, all right, that's my prediction. That's my thoughts. Keen,
Yeah.
what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, you guys all brought really good points, different than I thought it brought. I think I'm coming back to the same things I originally thought of, which was on the the simplest prediction I could first make off of it is that um, companies that are designed to benefit from refining the type of oil that's from Venezuela and a new oil partner will do well. If I did my research correct, I think Chevron's the only company that has kept some kind of agreement with them. But I think that I remember reading a long time ago that there were companies that had made arrangements with Venezuela, and then they broke them when Maduro went in power. And so I think they're probably going to be looking to get their money back. I think ConocoPhillips is one of them. There was news this morning about Trump wanted to revisit a discussion with Denmark about Greenland. And I thought that was a joke when it first got brought up way back. And it still kind of feels that way. But the ties between what happened with Venezuela and this discussion about like national security and our need to compete on a world stage, I thought was very interesting. And, there's one thing you can count on him to be, which is bold and unforgiving. And I know there's a discussion of like, if he effectively invades Greenland and just takes it, then NATO is over. But I don't know if that's really the case. I think the discussion could quickly spin to like, hey, NATO, by the way, most of you guys have become completely dependent on oil resources from countries like Russia. And yeah, we might be a little forceful and ask for some rare earths, but we're doing it so we could help NATO defend against these other countries that are enemies of NATO, such as Russia and China. And if we're going to compete on a stage, you can't just go try to protect less than 60,000 people, inhabitants in how large is Greenland in terms of like a land mass? I mean, their population's smaller than any city in Washington State. That's on the Puget Sound, I-5 corridor, and the everything that's been built around Greenland has been all, hey, let's just try to preserve a lifestyle for the people that live there. It's a very polite, you know, sing songs at the campfire and everyone loves each other. But the reality is that the landmass that they populate relative to the amount of people that live there, it's kind of it seems like kind of a ridiculous notion. I understand why he's doing it. I'm not saying, there are some massive long-term impacts if NATO were to come apart. So I can't say whether this is all the right choices. I see this being, hey, let's do something that seems a little bit more obvious. And I also feel like these are things that will actually help pressure the end of the Ukraine-Russian war. Like, hey guys, you keep trying to push your interests by invading another country. watch what happens when we do the same. And if you really came out on the better half of this power struggle, that's how I see this kind of playing out a little bit. It's like, you want to be bold, we can be bold too, right? You want to try to take position, leverage yourself to be stronger, watch us do the same thing. And who's really coming out on top? And maybe somewhere in the middle, they say, hey, we'll back off if you back off, is where I see that kind of leading to. I know that's a lot of high level.
Are you saying your prediction for the Maduro thing is the end of the Russia-Ukraine war?
Yeah, actually I am.
Okay.
Bold. It's either gonna come to an end because they're either gonna both forcefully push forward very aggressively, and maybe Ukraine just gets fully taken over by Russia, and then maybe we do the same thing with Greenland, and who knows, right? But I think that the world, you have to remember, I'm an historian, and the amount of I know people don't think that it's been a peaceful world in the last 100 years. Obviously, with the war against terrorism and the different wars that we've had, but if you look over, uh, if you really understand the amount of change that's happened, let's say for instance in Europe, like if you ever looked at like the history of Europe's map changing over like decades, centuries, the last 100 and so years, it's crazy how little the lines have moved, when that's historically a region where lines move a lot, again and again and again. So power shifts have always been happening in these smaller countries, kind of being pressed upon by these large empires. But there was a big push, and I think the American people have forgotten, because they just never had to experience it, that's how the world usually is lived. Like we're not a peaceful race. You know what I mean?
Right.
We're
savages by
very,
nature.
yeah. What is it? Which animal are we closest related to? Is it chimpanzees? Have you ever seen what chimpanzees do when they go to battle with each other? When like tribe goes against, like, they are, you know, I'd rather watch lions fight hyenas than watch chimps fight each other. It's gruesome. And so no, I think I'm not saying I want these things to happen. So make sure you're really clear about the difference between my predictions versus what I wish to happen. But I think that human nature is what it is, and it is a competitive space. And I do think that we've been at peace for a long time. And I think that these are all, potential driving conflicts that will maybe help I'm not saying in a good way, but some of the skirmishes that have been happening, right? There's always an mounting pressure, and there's a point where people have to look and say, okay, let's start to have calmer heads and back off a little bit. But then when the dust settles, let's see where the lines have been redrawn. And I do think some of that will happen.
We flexed our muscles. We reminded everybody who the big dog is in the yard. Okay, cool. Love it. All right. Next topic. Stock pick of the year. Okay. Before we get to the stock pick of the year, this is not financial advice, even though we have financial people here. Okay. So consume, purchase, short, long, whatever, at your own risk. Okay. With that being said, what is your one pick, maybe for a company that is going to do well in 2026? And it could be a obvious one or not obvious one, whatever you want to pick. I'm not a stock guy, so mine's going to be really quite obvious, and you guys are probably going to think I'm dumb, but that's okay. Let's start with you, Keen. You go first this time.
No, okay. This is a cop-out answer to me. But it's the only one that I feel confident that I think will do well next year. I think Goldman will have another stellar year. I think that there's going to be a lot of volatility, a lot of unknown things that happen. There's going to be winners and losers, heavy shifts, a lot like 2025, but different companies in different sectors at different times. And I think that Goldman's positioned themselves to do well with it because their investment bank and reduced interest rates always end up doing well for the whole banking sector, right? Something Chris Stewart had mentioned before was like the benefit of a company like Goldman and mergers acquisitions. I agree with that. But I also think that just as a company, they're going to do well. They're going to do well when they know how to pick them right. And I think that they're going to pick certain sectors well, and I think they'll do well. Do I think they're going to, for sure be the number one position I hold for 2026? I don't know that. To me, it's the most solid one. It's someone I feel good about.
Yeah. It's not what
So
you necessarily would have the most of. It's just like, what company do you think is going to sort of like win 2026? Like
I think they're
not
well
necessarily
positioned to
some.
do well this year.
Yeah.
Still,
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. Let's go, Chris, and then Andrew.
I'll be quick. Amazon, I like Amazon because goes to my thesis this year that Main Street will actually outperform Wall Street finally. And in part, I believe the US consumer will come back with a vengeance here. And downstream of that, spending is consumer discretionary, and the biggest winner, in my opinion, in that space will be Amazon. And also, you also get like, the business has multiple different components to it. So you're not just buying, obviously, the retail or Whole Foods or their cloud computing or their AI. You're buying like a sum of all parts. And to me, it underperformed last year. I could definitely see it outperforming this year. Um, I've got a lot of other picks that I like that are more speculative, but in terms of one I'm comfortable with that's going to look good at the end of the year, I would go with Amazon.
that was
Yep.
I almost said Amazon, Chris, by the way.
Love it. Amazon is always interesting because they they devote so much of their resources to like infrastructure and building out that I think have these years where the numbers don't pencil as well. They don't look as well if you're just looking at them because they spend so much money investing in like their future ideas, which almost always come to fruition. So, all right, cool. I like that pick too. All right, Andrew, what do you got? Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
If we, there are themes. It's really hard for me to pick one of these three over the other, but I really love the Amazon pick because if you love the Amazon pick, it feeds right into generally the theme of kind of this AI and virtual revolution of, there's going to be agents that are transacting with each other by the end of 2026. So like offices are going to have kind of automated purchases and there's going to be agents that are transacting. And if you believe with that, then there's this whole sector of kind of the crypto thesis. And so with the advent of AI, I think that there's going to, as a result of that, there's going to be a lot more talk about the blockchain and crypto and kind of the unfolding of the digitization of commerce. And I think, when I look at a company, say for example, like Coinbase, that's trading very clearly at a capitalization of earnings. I think Coinbase is trading at a PE of 21, right? Maybe a little bit more. But that's a company that's currently being valued at a capitalization of earnings rate when I think and really the book value. I mean, if you look at Coinbase and you look at the projects that they own, they're the largest investor of all crypto projects, right? So they have an immense book value that at least in my purview, in my observation, is being discounted to almost zero. So I think in a true value, if you say, okay, well, all of those crypto projects are worth nothing, well, then fine. But if you think that those crypto projects have value, then I think, I like companies that I think fall into the hyper growth phase, that fall into hyper growth that would also be considered deep value. So I actually think that checks both the boxes, and it does resonate nicely with the Amazon theme and kind of this this digitization of commerce. And I think I think it's worth paying attention to the evolution of this sector just in general. So if I had to pick one, it kind of blended what I like to see, which is kind of an acquisition price that seems reasonable and also has the opportunity for growth, just because I think that there's a breakdown in valuation methodology. That would be the pick.
Okay. Yeah.
But I don't think you can have this conversation without also saying that I've been, having, you guys know this, I've been screaming, from the mountaintops, anybody that would listen, about what would happen to metals over time if we see both consumption in industrial AI and manufacturing and you know, the continued quantitative easing and money printing and things like that unfold. And I think we're seeing that right now. What silver's up over the last 12 months, 167%. And largely there are paper contracts that exceed the total, the total actual real metal supply. So I don't think you can, it's not a stock itself, right? It's just an asset.
Yeah.
And I don't think that you can ignore what happens when these short positions get cleared. And if these short positions get cleared, because if you look at what's happening with metals prices on the street in other countries, you know, the actual price of an ounce of silver is almost double on the street in other countries what it's selling for in the paper market. So there seems to be a breakdown, and what could happen if these short positions get cleared is we could see a rise in the asset value substantially. So I think those are two positions that if you believe in kind of in AI and you believe that this is going to continue to unfold in the way that it has over the last few years, and what does it look like if we extrapolated it through 2026, I think those are two assets that you can't ignore.
Okay.
So you're
Love
saying
it.
you picked the commodity and then Coinbase, was it?
Yeah.
So you picked Coinbase and then you picked metals.
Yeah, I mean, the only constraint I have here with regard to conviction is 12 months, right? So this isn't like whether or not I like these things long term, because I think you guys know that that's kind of a foregone, right? I'm very optimistic about what the future of those things look like over time. The constraint really is 12 months. You know, where are we going to be in 12 months? December 31st, where are we going to look back and where are we going to be?
I'll give you a little insight. Again, this isn't financial advice. My
Right,
number one
right.
position, my number one position right now, number one for my personal portfolio is silver. Okay. And I own a lot of positions, but by far I'm into silver. Okay. And there's even more that that Andrew's not talking about that go into that. But we would take the rest of this time to just kind of suss that out. So I'll just say that and then let you guys kind of go in and do your own research.
Yep.
As
Love
a,
it.
as a
Okay,
matter of
good.
fact, I think if we go back to this version of this a year ago, I think I was talking about gold and silver and metals and what was going to happen if these things unfold. It might not have been last year, but the year before. So
Yeah.
um yeah. So
Love it. Okay, good. Okay, my pick is actually did really, really well in 2025 as well, I believe. This is Alphabet. Okay. Why? Well, they got their act together. Gemini is going to crush ChatGPT. It's slowly but surely happening. They have their finger in everything. Their advertising model is not broken. They're going to advertise inside of Gemini soon. And their ad revenues are going to continue to grow. They own YouTube, obviously, the number one watched platform in the world by far. It's not even close. They own Waymo, the number one self-driving sort of platform. Again, not I don't know about in the world, in the United States, head and shoulders above everybody else. So they have nowhere to go but up, and I think that they will continue to go up. I don't know if it will be as strong as 2025 is, but they, when Sergey, all right, he's the CEO, he's the founder, right? Sergey
Founder.
Brin.
Yeah.
When he came back in, and what's great about founders is they have that, I don't give up attitude. They can just come in and say, look, I don't care what you guys are saying. This is what we're going to do. And I think when that happened, a lot changed with Google, with Alphabet in general. I think that's just going to continue to happen now that they have righted the ship. There's no one really better at innovating, I think, those type of products over time, and that's my pick. All right.
have you
Okay,
guys
so yeah.
so hold on, I want to comment on this because I love that. I love that
Yep.
pick. Have you guys spent any time in Gemini and the Notebook LM and because I've been spending an increasing amount of time in kind of my recreational leisure time using that to assimilate ideas. There's a really great AI platform called Whisper, and you can dictate to it and then load that into the
Mhm.
Notebook LM, and it will extrapolate your thoughts for you. And then within Google, there's now within the Gemini platform, there's now gems you can create, and you can kind of train it to think the way that you think. Have you guys spent any time in this? I mean, the game is completely
I've been
changed.
using Gemini. Here's what I have done. That's a little bit. That I don't know. It's not exactly the same as what you're doing, but it's helped a ton. So what I did was I was using ChatGPT for a long time, and I basically said, I actually I don't know where I got this. I said if you were going to be my personal coach, what are the 50 questions that you would want to know? Okay, then it spit out those 50 questions. Then I gave it the 50 questions and I said, based on everything that you know about all of our conversations, answer these questions for me. If you're not 85% certain, then let me know. And it filled out, probably about 85% of it relatively well. Then I put that into a Word doc. And then I went in and actually answered all of the questions in depth as much as I could. And then that sheet becomes my working AI context sheet. So before I ask it a question, if I'm starting a new chat, I put this context doc in at the beginning because it tells everything that they need to know about me to answer the question to give me the most benefit. It even has things in there like, how do you like to be talked to? Like what's your coaching style, or what is your like, what's your conversational style and that type of stuff. It just makes everything significantly better. And then it only grows on itself. And then what I've also been really, really like intentional about doing is trying to create threads that I keep coming back to. That way it keeps your entire conversation in line forever. It remembers everything that you've ever said, because when you start a new chat, then you sort of have to update it with everything else. So I try to have like themes for chats and stick each theme in a chat. So like I have a personal coach chat where I talk about anything that's sort of like very specific to like health maybe and like stuff like that. But yeah, I've been using Gemini. It's great. So
You guys know that was my pick. That was my pick last year. So
and they crushed.
they did great. They did great. I want to speak one more thing to Chris's pick on Amazon. The main reason why I didn't pick them is I thought maybe it's 1 year early, but what I pictured was there's a day where their efficiency, like they had to prove to everyone that buying online would change the world and take away from these massive retailers like the Costco's and the Walmarts and so forth. And they did it. And COVID obviously gave them a big boost in it. Now that that's been established and they're a tech company first, you have to picture, okay, let's imagine between, just warehouse management, distribution, logistics, they've already stepped into that space of being a logistics competitor to the FedEx and UPSs of the world. And you would have to imagine they should be one of the earliest adopters of automated. Like you imagine, like someone should be able to order something on the app, and there'll be robots grabbing products from a warehouse, loading them onto self-driving vehicles that show up at your house. And then if they're the leaders in that way before everyone else does, how does that affect their competitive edge also on like pricing, right? And of course, margin. And I think that people have not been paying that much attention to how much they could benefit. The reason why I didn't pick them up, I thought it might be a year early, but I think that if those things get if there are deals that get put down and they start to, be way ahead of the curve in that space, I picture them doing that. Then I think that they would just absolutely crush and their profits will go through the roof.
Yeah. I think
It
that's
could be it could be the final
Yeah.
blow of some of these other companies that have been hanging on like on the thread as a logistics company, that they could just be done.
Yep. I think their next wave of investment has been like robotics, automation, the things that you can't see that they're working on, right? Because they just don't tell you, until their workforce has been cut in half and the delivery time is also cut in half.
Just keep your ear to the ground about a partnership they might ever do with either Alphabet or with Tesla, because I don't see them trying to say, hey, I imagine they'll probably try to do some kind of partnership with them to get the automation to go all the way to the logistics level. I don't see them trying to say, hey, we'll just compete with you guys and try to do it parallel to you. I think that they'll probably do some kind of partnership similar to what like Alphabet did with Apple with browser services inside the iPhone on Safari. Yep. I picture them doing something similar to that when it comes to logistics. And when it happens, it'll be a big win for both companies.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We will see. All right. Next topic. And we're going actually, and I'm going to flip the order a little bit, not for this one, but for the next one, because we're going to go sort of like world business. So the next topic that I raised was how predictions. Remember how is Mamdani, the new mayor of New York City, and Katie Wilson, who is the new mayor of Seattle, which is local for us, at the end of 2026. Like, what's their grade going to be? And then you can expound on that. How about that? Okay. You're going to grade them at the end of 2026. What's that going to look like? Who hasn't gone first? Andrew, Chris, I don't think you've gone first yet, right?
No, we can have somebody else tackle that one right off the
bat. Who wants to go with it? Who's ready? Oh, you're muted.
Andrew's on silent.
In our business, there's an old saying that says the trend is your friend, and I don't see, generally speaking, my observation about what's happening economically in New York and budget wise, and the same is true. Seattle's just the same, but smaller. I think you guys generally recognize, especially as business owners, that throwing money at a problem, money solves money problems. Money doesn't solve other, these other issues. And in this case, money doesn't even solve the money problems. That's my observation for both New York and Seattle. One, we have a pretty substantial spending problem in both cities. The money isn't delivering effective results that's being allocated to issues like drug abuse and homelessness and kind of the cultural issues that are very pervasive in both cities. So I don't see a new mayor in either case improving the situation, which was already deteriorating. So generally, I would say I expect more of the same. I expect that the business and economic conditions, I'm not even going to speak to kind of the social and drug abuse and crime. I'm going to talk about that because I don't think that that's going to get better either, especially from policies that are coming out saying like most recently in Seattle, for example, there was a say, well, like they're not going to address open drug abuse anymore. So, and that was, not me, saying that. That's Katie Wilson saying that she's asking Seattle police not to arrest, folks for open drug abuse in the city. So I suspect if you continue that, you kind of know where that. So I would say my pick is that the trend is no longer plateauing. It's now regressing economically, socially. Crime is getting. So I expect the trend to continue, and I don't see it improving in either city. Yeah. That would be my.
I'll go now too. I'm ready because I just thought of something. My grade is going to be an F. I don't think they're going to do well at all. I think they're going to fail, but I think it's going to be for an interesting reason, something that just recently happened that I think is going to have a ripple effect throughout the entire country. And that is this sort of like citizen journalism that just happened in
Minnesota.
Yeah. Minnesota.
I think is going to have a ripple effect through all of the states. And in particular, it's going to affect those states where you have these social programs going that seem to have no end. Everybody can see it except for the people in charge. And there's going to be some digging that begins to happen. And there's going to be some fallout from that. So, and I think that that's just going to eliminate this strategy. I don't know what to call it really, of sort of like creating these not entitlement programs, these social structure programs that just sort of funnel money to people is what it really looks like. And is in a way, because there is no change in circumstance after spending millions and millions and millions of dollars. It's getting worse. The programs are not helping at all. So I think that the two of them and probably many other sort of progressive, I don't know how you describe them, political leaders throughout the country are going to have a much harder time enacting their ideas, because there's going to be a lot more scrutiny behind what they're trying to do. So that's my short answer. Okay, Keen?
Yeah. I think that, well, we're only talking 2026 predictions, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So I think that I don't think they're going to do great, but I don't think that the idea of a democratic or a Democrat socialist movement is going to go away. I think it's actually only going to grow. But I think it'll be morphed and changed over time. And I think that in their hopes of being progressive, I think that they're trying to put people in place to make these changes. And I think the world is actually going to slowly change to what people are hoping for by voting for these people without the assistance of these politicians. But they will still claim to be a socialist, a Democrat, and that in itself will still grow. But what that means in the future will end up changing. And because these two are going to try to move, this is for the sake of being progressive, progressive also means sometimes trying new shit. And I think that they're trying new things a little bit early, and it's not going to, I don't think it's going to work well for them. But I do think that, I don't think that it's going to mean an end to socialist style movements. I feel like they're actually going to just grow, but more over time. We kind of alluded to it earlier, right? Like at the end of the day, there's two things that we kind of see happening with AI in this space, and that's, companies. It's one of the first times that the Industrial Revolution had some emphasis to this too, but it's like one of the few times that we can see that companies could drive towards efficiency and profits without necessarily driving up, while initially taking away some labor jobs and creating some new jobs in the process. And there'll be a big gap separation between rich and poor, and everyone's votes the same. You've heard Elon talk about the future in AI might resulting in everyone having this kind of universally high income. That sounds pretty socialist to me. So I feel like things are going to move that direction, but I don't think that they're going to. I think that what they're picturing, I think what progressives are hoping to happen when they vote for these leaders is going to eventually happen, not because of the leaders. And so I think these leaders that have been put in place aren't going to succeed, because I don't think they have the vision for where the world's going. And I think that they're inadvertently, actually, a lot of these things I think the Trump administration is putting in place actually can help a socialist style movement in the future, but not because they're so against them, they don't see it, and it's going to just go that way on their own, and they're going to step on their own toes in the process trying to get there.
Okay, love it. All right, Chris, are you answering this, or are you just dodging this whole question? You coming in?
No, I'm answering it. I mean, there's just so much behind it, so I'm going to try and summarize it. I agree with the sentiment of Keen as it relates to 2026, because the predictions for this year, not over the next couple of years, which my prediction would change over that time. I think there's going to be an economic boom this year, like I said, in Main Street, and that'll have like a halo effect that will still benefit progressive cities less so, obviously, than more conservative districts that will more embrace it. But the progressive cities will still get the benefit of like the animal spirits, right? And I think that'll kind of paper over a lot of the policies that won't even really fully be in effect this year. One thing about Katie Wilson specifically is she has no experience as a leader. So my guess is she's going to have a hard time navigating even Seattle politics when it's all friendly fire. And I think it's going to take a minute for her to kind of figure things. She'll figure things out. To me, I just don't think she's going to get a lot of movement in any direction this year. So it'll be kind of, I think more of a 2027, 2028 kind of when the market ultimately weighs in, or this local community weighs in on her. I think Mamdani is going to have a similar issue. I think he's a little bit more intelligent, more calculated, and he will slow some of his his role out of the gate, when there's like kind of max visibility to him. And again, he'll benefit from what I think is going to be happening. And of course, they'll take credit and then, you know, say all the slanderous stuff towards the current administration that's benefiting them. But I think both of them will largely be ineffective, won't have progressives really championing what they've done. But like Keen said, I think the trend is here to stay, with kind of going after the rich. And we can talk about that probably on another, you know, topic.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I agree as well. To say you're going to create, you know, state-run grocery stores or city-run grocery stores and then actually do it, there's a big gap between those two things, and it takes time. All right. It is 12 o'clock. I just want to do a quick time check for everybody. I don't know if you can stay. We can keep going. Keen and I, we don't have anything to do. We have no lives, so we just go long. Okay.
Yeah.
If you guys gotta go though.
I can
let us
hang
know.
for another 30 minutes. 12.
Okay.
I could be here till 12:30.
All right, perfect. All right, we should. If we're not done by 12:30, then we need a new moderator. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right.
I got about
Next.
another 10.
Yeah. Okay, another 10. All right, we'll go. All right, we'll go. We'll do this way then. What about next prediction? The biggest loser stock or business of 2026.
You want me to chime in here?
Whoever's
The
ready.
one,
Yeah,
the
let's
one
go.
I it's hard for me to say it'll be the biggest loser, but I think the ultimate test and transfer of knowledge and faith is going to be in Berkshire Hathaway, for obvious reasons. Obviously, Munger is no longer there. Buffett has stepped aside. So, you know, the next in line, this is going to be their chance to demonstrate that they embody the same ideas, thinking, spirit that Buffett does. Now, he's not totally uninvolved, and we'll see how involved he's been actually in the decision-making hierarchy. And maybe he's still actively involved. He's just not any at the helm anymore. But that one to me is going to be the test of investor sentiment, not because the underlying companies they own, but just because I think largely people have invested in the mystique of Buffett and his thinking and Munger and their collaboration over the years. And we'll see if that continues. I think that for me is going to be the biggest test of a tried and true long-term stock that just always was very comforting. And at least as someone that's been investing for a couple of decades, like that was always felt like a safe haven asset. And I don't know that investor sentiment is going to be there in the same way because we'll see, right? I mean, I think that there was a lot of confidence because of the folks that were at the helm there, mainly Buffett and Munger, and now that's no longer the case. So, you know, we'll see if they get the next couple picks right, and we'll see, you know, what that translates to over time.
Yeah. Okay. I like that one. That was good.
But they're on the hot seat for 2026. This is going to be a really important year for them.
Yeah. Love it. Okay, great. Who's Keen? You ready? Or Chris? Yeah, let's go, Chris. You ready?
I'll jump in. I'm gonna. And this might be a low-hanging fruit, but I'm gonna go with Moderna. There's not going to be a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic where everybody is sort of coerced into taking their product in mass all over the world, and I think that they're still wildly expensive for their pipeline, which is, by the way, likely to become less and less attractive as RFK kind of implements our kind of reduction of vaccine policy throughout the government. And as that kind of takes full effect here in the North American market, at least where Moderna does a lion's share of their business, I think that they will continue to dwindle. And they're just take a look at their last, I don't know, 7 quarters if you want to get an idea of how they're performing. They spent a lot of money on trying to market as opposed to invest in their underlying product research and pipeline. So I think they're up 9%, almost 10% today. I think if I'm shorting, I like it when it goes up like that over the last month or so. And I'll be looking to potentially short them this year. That's it.
Love it. All right, Keen, what do you got?
I mean, I'm kind of going back to the Venezuela thing. I think there's a handful of companies that are set up that have been focusing on renewable energies like renewable diesels and, you know, wind farms and so forth. I don't think I would pick a company specifically. It's probably an entire sector. I think that companies that have been focusing on like advanced green energy renewables, and I think that they probably have already, if they're exclusively in that space. Um, but to me, it's if you make me pick a company, I'd probably lean away from that industry then, and I would probably pick like a logistics company. I kind of mentioned it earlier with the discussion about like Amazon. If they're not positioning themselves to get any kind of automation, robotics, self-driving vehicles, it's like they've already, you know, if they're not if they're not forward thinking enough to try to even make partnerships in that space early on, then I think one of the companies is going to be left hanging, whether it be a UPS or FedEx. They've already kind of had their, UPS already had their ass sanded to them, and um, and I don't know if they're in forward thinking enough to think about how self-driving vehicles and automation are going to be necessary in their business and moving forward. But if they don't, then I think they're going to be in a lot of trouble.
Yep.
So
Okay, good. I don't. This is the only one I could come up with. Okay, I'm not a stock guy. My pick is Apple. Okay, why? Because they haven't come out with a good product, anything new or innovative in a long time. They just released a new phone last year, and it was mediocre at best. It's just thinner. There's nothing good about it. Everybody's locked into their ecosystem. That's the only reason people stick with them, right? I mean, like what they have is good, okay, but they're not doing anything that's like poised for growth. I think as they continue to make, like, how much better can the next phone be to make everybody want to run out and buy it? Their AI sucks, right? Their what Siri is terrible, and so they're gonna have to come up with some integration with somebody or figure something else out, or they are going to go even or go down. Okay.
it was
That's
funny, Chris, is I
Yeah.
felt the same way about Apple last year, and I actually think that they're going to have a better year this year than what you're saying because of the thing that you said in the middle of what you just said.
Right.
I think that they already realize what you just said, and
Yeah.
there's a partnership coming. And my prediction is it's going to happen from the stock pick you picked as the winner for this year. I think that they end up striking a deal with Google, similar to they did with the Safari deal. And when that happens, they'll hold on to their position and then they'll do well. So I think that, I'm going to counter and say, I disagree with you because I agree with you.
Yep. No, I get it. I think I think my retort would say I think that is probably a 2028 thing, not a 2027 thing. The only reason I say it is integrating those things I don't think is easy to do. I also think the tech is like a year away from being really great. You know, there you can talk. You can't talk with even ChatGPT. You can have a conversation with. I know Andrew already mentioned Whisper. There are some platforms that are great. I think integrating that into Apple's system is going to take some time, but we'll see. Also, look, real talk, Tim Cook, he's okay, right? I mean, what I'm saying is he's not a driver of he's done a great job of like keeping the wheels on the road.
Yeah.
I have heard it said that he's not the innovator. He's like a world-class operator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me. By the way, I can see contextually both of these arguments being right. They are the third most profitable company on the planet. They were the most profitable company on the planet. They're now second. Maybe they finish third, fourth, fifth as the world continues to evolve before they figure out this AI game. But I do believe that they're going to figure out a collaboration and have a partnership. Whether they do it this year or next, they'll eventually figure it out.
Yeah.
I
This
think
wasn't a
they're
strong pick,
I
by
think
the
they're
way.
fast tracking it. I think that I felt the exact way you felt, Chris, about 7 months ago. You even heard me bitching about it. I'm like, I'm tired of this
Yeah,
stupid
we've
ass
talked about it
phone.
before. We've talked
Yeah.
about it for sure.
Yeah, Keen talked about it on repeat for at least 12 months.
Yeah.
And now now my position's turning. I'm like, I could see the pressures, the conversations about Tim Cook, and it's like, no, now's the time they're gonna start saying, okay, time for us to stop messing around with the stupid headset that's overpriced, and let's make another partnership deal, and let's hold our position, and then blah blah blah, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Tim Cook's strengths will start to show up in terms of like what in terms of operationally, how do we make sure our machines can continue to happen at this profitable rate of production that will also embrace the new technology with the new partnership that we have in place. And then he'll be able to put those things in place, and then he'll stay in the seat. I don't think he's going to get replaced.
Yep. Yep. Okay. All right. Andrew, you got to go. You out?
I do. My time is up.
We don't want to talk to you anymore anyway.
Thanks, guys. Chris,
Hopefully
it's great
next
talking.
week will work.
Yep, you
and
too,
we can
Andrew.
make this a regular
Thanks,
thing.
buddy.
All right.
Yeah, I'd love to.
All right. See you.
See you.
Okay. We are going to keep going though. Okay.
Okay.
The next thing, we're moving back into the world of politics. Congressional elections are coming up this year, right? What's your prediction for who takes Congress? These last two will probably be a little shorter because, well, this one's just, you can talk as much as you want. In the last one, we've already kind of skirted around. Who wins Congress? Keen, you're up first.
You're talking about which party?
Yeah. Who controls Congress after the election?
Oh man. Oh, I mean, I do agree with Chris that it's going to be a better year. And if it, gosh, I'm really on the line with this. If it breaks early enough, I think the Republicans can still hold it. But the general approval rating right now for Trump's administration isn't the best. And so they have some work ahead of them to try to change the thinking between here and there. And so I guess I'll answer in a positive light. And I think, for me, the positive light just means that the economy does better fast enough, and that the Republicans will probably stay in power. And I think it has more to do with the hope that the market does well enough, and that the general Main Street does well enough that it does change that point of view. Um, I'm quietly still like this is not when I say optimistic, I mean optimistic in terms of like the marketplace and people's overall view of things. But I'm quietly also a little afraid that if all those things come true, I would love for us to have the rare earths that exist in Greenland, but I am really worried about like, what if he does blow up NATO? And if that does happen,
Yeah.
what does that mean for us geopolitically? And so it's
Do you think a strong economy favors Republicans generally, or do you just think a strong economy favors like status quo?
a strong economy favors the party in power.
Right. Okay. Right.
Whoever's
strong
in power
economy, keep it the
the
way it is. It's working. It ain't broke. Don't fix it. Kind of a thing.
people vote with their pocketbook.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Chris, thoughts?
Well, if this was a couple months ago, the Poly Market said that Democrats have a 78% chance of winning an off-year election. But with Donald Trump, I don't think that that's going to be the case. I think he is the biggest marketer and campaigner, arguably more so than Barack Obama, who was like, was the kind of the special weapon that Dems would bring out any election and basically any, to really drive momentum. I think Donald Trump will really tout how the economy's doing and saying like this economy will fall apart. You'll ruin it. You'll ruin the money that that you're getting, that you saw this year if you vote these guys out. And then you'll have like stuff like ads like the Somali daycare, the Leering Center for education. You'll have, you'll have like the videos of like Democrats like, being on like pro Maduro. I mean, you'll just anything that they're doing right now that they think like is I guess pleasing their base will be used against them in the midterms. They've learned almost nothing from the last couple of elections, and so I would just say I'm gonna say, even though like right now it's still kind of probably at 50-50, I would say Republicans are going to keep the House and they'll add seats in the Senate. And it's just going to be a shock again.
Yeah.
And now I won't say that, in 2028 that JD Vance or Marco Rubio's a surefire. I don't know. I won't go that far, but I'll just say the way it's lining up right now, by November this year, I think everything will be trending towards Republicans.
Yep. I tend to agree with you. I think also one thing to remember is come April 15th, middle class and lower class America is going to get their biggest tax refund ever, I think.
Yep.
So these new tax cuts are going to kick in, right? Remember, there's no tax on tips, like not all tips, but like all of these different things I think are gonna
Do you mind if I riff on that for a little bit?
of course, yeah.
All right. Big Beautiful Bill. Most of the benefits of the Big Beautiful Bill have not even been seen yet. So most Americans, almost every American, did not adjust their withholdings last year. And as a result of that, they've over withheld money that they will be getting back in the form of a refund. The Big Beautiful Bill really benefits like pretty much everyone, right? So one of the seldom known things is that it really helps seniors, particularly those who are getting Social Security. So what it does is it increases the benefit that they get from a deduction standpoint called the senior benefit. And that allows them to get between $6,000 and $12,000 of additional write-offs against their Social Security income. And about 50% of Social Security recipients pay taxes. There's 70 million Americans right now that are on Social Security. So if you take 35 million of them and dramatically reduce their taxes, where do you think that money's going to go? Some of it will go in their savings account, yes, but a lot of it's going to get spent.
Yeah.
And that's only on the senior side. If you go downstream of that, everywhere else across the tax bracket that we've over withheld, you're also going to get refunds that'll be a lot larger. And people will take that money and they'll spend it. That's why I said Amazon will be a benefactor of that. But
Yep.
really just consumer discretionary spending in general, which will benefit the entire economy.
Yep.
And that paired with speculation, when you have big IPOs that will come out this year, because that's what happens when you get big IPOs. Everyone's like, oh, I wish I was in on that. And now I'm going to speculate on the next, hot publicly traded thing. And that generates, on the front end of it, generates economic activity. And so I think the Big Beautiful Bill, which also, by the way, does bonus depreciation on equipment and on real estate acquisitions, will really be seen in 2026, far more than it was in 25. And so that in part is why I see some higher than forecasted GDP growth. And then also at the same time, Bassett is going to be working on trying to get mortgage affordability down as well. So you're talking about household formation and whatnot. So I'm very bullish. Now, that being said, you're going to have the government shutdown, right? That's going to be a thing. That's going to cause fear in the marketplace. So I'm not saying there's not going to be shocks to the system throughout the year. You should expect that. But use each time that occurs to go in and try and buy up distressed assets.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, I think, and then I'm going to piggyback off of what you said too, though. I think that there is going to be some continued an additional fallout from this, citizen journalism throughout the country. And you know, where it reverberates most is in your, like, as the more local you get, the more impactful these type of things become. You've already seen Tim Walz, I think 3 weeks ago, was announcing his run for reelection. And yesterday he said he's not running anymore. Why is that? Because these things have a significant local effect. And any of these Congress people and senators that have endorsed the governor of their state or the programs that they talk about that then come under fire as, you know, as being these wasteful, you know, like in some cases just really illegal things, gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt. And I think that this skews in the way of the Democrats in a bad way, just generally, right? Keen, what's up? What do you want to say?
I was gonna say actually, again, more of a sector than a company, but you talked about biggest losers.
Mhm.
I've been sick and tired of this fucking biased media. I don't care if it's Fox News for the right, CNN for the left. It's just a big, giant waste of noise. And one of the ahas I had from what's happening with the civilian news that we're talking about is the dollars that are going, like, these companies have been like hanging on by a thread because they were already a dying industry when social media started becoming the news outlet. And then this is their way of trying to survive. And now this is an attack against that kind of media and news reporting. I just, this is more of a hopeful thing. And I think it's going to happen. I just hope they get their asses all handed to them and that half of those companies go out of business. At least not necessarily the whole, because there are a lot more built in these conglomerates, right? I think Warner owns CNN, for instance. Obviously, Fox has their hands in other things other than just their news. But I feel like a lot of that, you know, like the New
They're
York
going to pivot away.
Times and the Washington Post, it's going to be like, these guys are doing, like, you had a chance to get away from that and give what the people really want, which is real reporting. And if you, it's, and this is just an example of the market saying, if you don't give us what we want, we're going to, someone else will benefit from it. And well, how many people had seen that video that guy did? I think it was like
Or like
in just,
95 million. It's like it's probably in the over 100 million at this point.
I think it's over 500 million at this
Yeah,
point.
it could be. Yeah, it's
It's
significant.
globally.
Yeah, global. It's, and so I hope that they just keep getting their asses handed to them and that at least one of those newspapers, let's say the Washington Post or the New York Times, just like goes away. It's like,
Well, where
be
you,
gone,
yeah.
you
Well,
know?
the other thing too is, and then we'll get to our last question so we can wrap this up. But the
Probably
other
not the
thing
New
too
York Times, but maybe the Washington Post.
well, what you get here too is those major media outlets, they still refuse to pick up this story and do any reporting on it. Like you really don't see a lot or anything related to this on those outlets because you can draw your own conclusions as to why. I guess nobody really knows, but it doesn't make a lot of sense because it's definitely news. You know, when you have the governor of a state um, deciding not to seek reelection after just announcing that they were going to, like that should be big news, and the why should be covered. So, all right, last question: economic prediction, up, down, flat, whatever. What do you think? I we know where Chris stands. Keen, I think we kind of know where everybody stands because I'm just going to agree with you guys on this. But Chris, let's let Chris go first, and then Keen, you can go because Chris, I'm sure, is going to be relatively short.
Yeah, I think you know, the markets and the economy don't always like land at the same spot at the same time, but over the course of time, they tend to directionally go the same, like over time, they tend to track. So what I'll say is my predictions aren't specific to like you know, a point in the year, because there are going to be shocks to the system, as there always is, even good years. So like if you look at every year, there's a point in the year where like the market, you know, is from its high is, you know, some significantly down, usually it's 20-30% from the high of the year, right? And depending on when people invest, they can have either a positive outcome or a negative outcome depending on when they come in. But if I'm just to say economy is going to outperform this year expectations, all right? We know that from what I've just said. previously. The markets, I think, will have a strong year as well, but I think there's going to be points this year that, like, it seems like a layup, a slam dunk right now, that things are just going to crush. And that's probably going to be how it finishes when we look back. But there's going to be pockets of this year where it's like something happens in AI, there's a new chip that basically makes NVIDIA seem obsolete potentially, and then the effect of that is everything below NVIDIA gets sold off, all risk assets get sold off. All the talking heads are like, well, is this the beginning of the bubbles bursting and da 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 da, right? And that'll happen. And then the weak money will go out of the market, as it always does. And then the markets will ramp back up again and probably hit, extremely high numbers at some point this year. And then going into the midterms, depending on what's trending, if it looks like I'm wrong and the Dems are going to take it back, obviously the market's going to sell off because they're going to think it's going to be an impeach Trump kind of thing, which will destabilize the markets, and his whole infrastructure will be under question. And so here's my prediction. I think the S&P 500, which is currently at 6946, will be around 7,400 at some point this year. And it will outperform the NASDAQ, I believe. So I believe that it'll, because it reflects Main Street more than the NASDAQ does, I think it'll outperform the NASDAQ. And I think the Dow will track with it because it's large industrials predominantly. But if I was looking at the sector I'd want to own most, I'd probably want to own small companies. So I'd look at the Russell 2000, or I'd look at like another, index that basically captured small cap companies. I think small caps will finally outperform this year in the markets. Double-digit returns in all of the indices. YOLO it. No, I'm kidding on the YOLO part, but yeah, it's going to be a strong year.
Okay, love it. All right, Keen, what do you got?
Yeah, Chris fucking stole what I was gonna say. Yeah, I think small caps are gonna do really well this year. And I think my S&P prediction is probably a similar year as last year, because last year felt a lot like the Mag 7 versus the S&P 493, or just in general AI, and certain companies in like the Mag 7 just carrying so much of the S&P. So I think that the S&P will have a similar year as last year, but I think it's because the general market improvement will benefit the other 493, and there'll be some moving around the position who's in it. So I think that people will have a similar year, and maybe right around 15% for the S&P when the year ends. But I do think small caps will outperform it by not a lot, but I think it's a big deal for them to outperform, the 15% projection of the S&P. So I think that if small cap can hit 16 to 20%, that would be a big deal. And I think very similarly, if you know how to try to pick a handful of positions that would be small caps that will specifically do well, then you might be able to outperform it. So
love it. Okay, I'm not going to give my stock market predictions. I think generally though, the economic vibe is going to be a good one. Like we talked about, people are going to have more money in their pockets. I think inflation is going to continue to hold steady or go down. I think so people will have more spending power. Their groceries are going to cost less. And people are going to be buying boats. You get a tax return. What do you do with it? You buy a boat. That's what everybody does. So, all right, that is it. That's it for the prediction episode. This was super fun. Hopefully we can make this a regular thing. We're just going to wrap it up. So this is the Business Barbershop Podcast. I am Chris.
I'm Keen.
And Chris Stewart.
That's right. All right. Have a good one, everybody. And let's make 2026 amazing.
All right. Peace, guys.
See ya.
See you guys later.